Greetings and welcome, brave citizens of our new world. I am Toronto's greatest supervillain and evil genius, Dr. Terawatt. This is our Layer 3.0, and today is day 22 of our VEDA challenge. V.E.D.A, vlogging every day in April. We are getting there. We are getting there. Huh. I'm a little under the weather. I've made myself some ginger tea, so I'm trying to relax. Hopefully I'll have most of my work and everything done for tomorrow so that I'm not really rushing myself too much and I can relax more than anything else. On to questions. Solve racism by making the racists blind for a time. They would have no choice but to see everyone as the same color. Should they resist change, make it a permanence? Here's the thing. Racism isn't something that has to do with whether or not you can see a person. I grew up in a small town of just white people. Just only white people. And not just white people from the same communities. Specifically Irish, English, and Scottish white people. And they were all Christian white people as well, and all specifically Baptists. And there was, I assure you, no shortage of discrimination going around for every little tiny reason to if you were tall, if you were short, if you were fat, if you were skin, if you were a guy, if you were a girl, if you were strong or weak or smart or stupid, anything. Literally anything that you did. Even if it was the same as everyone else, someone would just point at, like, literally, oh, you have brown hair, ha ha ha, and then that would be the thing that everyone made fun of you for friggin' weeks. Ignorance in people's need to fight with each other doesn't come from whether or not they can see the color of another person's skin. That is behavior that we need to unlearn. So you giggled at the Dr. Terawatt musical. What about a Dr. Terra rap? Will we see the good doctor get down with his bad self? Possibly, yes. I tried to do a rap with the Ninja with a Soul Patch at Con Bravo a couple years back at a stage thing, but we didn't rehearse it enough, but I wanted to push through ahead with it anyways, and it didn't turn out very well. So I might be getting back to that someday. We'll see. Just about every question asked is about something that happens after you rule the planet. Let's suppose you are thwarted and incapacitated or killed and cannot complete your quest. Is there another villain that you would like to take your place? Elon Musk. If that guy's not an evil genius, I don't know who is. Hey Doc, finally caught up with all the videos. By the way, love The Rise of Dr. Terawatt. Thank you. Glad to have you caught up. Have you ever heard of Warframe? It's a game where you play as a robot ninja and play alongside other robot ninjas in missions online. I've heard of it. I've seen it. Never played it myself because they have like suits of armor that do all kinds of things. Like ones that do fire, ones that do ice, ones that do like lightning. There's like a Tesla armor, I'm told, and it's like really cool. And they have different types of armor for like melee and ranged stuff and whatnot. And don't get me wrong, it seemed interesting, but there wasn't like anything really specific about it that drew me in. Doctor, may we hear an overview of why you chose electricity as your element of choice? Sure, the world runs on electricity in one form or the next, but why not graviton or molecular manipulation? Well, I mean, I have atomic molecular manipulation over here, but I chose electricity as sort of my main theme because it is an element that drives industry. It is a resource that everyone uses almost every moment of every day. It is a force that drives us forward, and it's a force of destruction. Hey Doc, what in your Terrible Warriors tenure is your favorite campaign? For me, it's Pendragon and Spirit of the Century because they are insanely hilarious. Thank you. I would say, Spirit of the Century was one of my favorites because I got to play a mad scientist very similar to myself, and it was fun when they threw funny problems at me for me to invent interesting, funny solutions to it. Pendragon is always going to hold a special place in my heart, though, because can my horse have a mustache?
Can
ask me about
my
coat of
horse have a mustache?
Have you considered what you'd use for a national anthem, if anything? Normally I'd like to go with a big long song about how I inevitably overcame the absolute cesspool that is the human race, but in truth I would rather it be something about unity. About marching together for a better future. What was your favorite game growing up? Growing up, so back when I was a kid, one of the games I was the most excited about would have to be Mega Man X, the series of Mega Man X games, like Mega Man X through to Mega Man X3 or 4.
Yeah! Yeah, lemons!
X2 specifically, if I had to pick one. Those games I thought were just a huge amount of fun. I loved the way that they were put together, how the game taught you how to use itself, how it was just intuitive and challenging but fun. And Bubble Crab was my arch nemesis. He was always the one that I went for first to get the ability to go to the next person, and etc, etc. What will happen to pre-existing cultures and traditions when you take over? Will they just disappear as time goes on, or will you allow former countries to continue as though nothing has changed? Former countries may continue as though little has changed. There are always going to be small changes, but they can pretty much keep their culture as long as the culture doesn't involve things like rampant sexism, racism, murder, stuff like that. Dear Doc, if it was real, would you move to Rapture from Bioshock? Are you out of your mind? No. I mean, as interesting as that would have been, don't get me wrong, with the cool bio-injections that you could get, and the wicked crazy steam guns that are modified, and the modification stations that are literally everywhere. And its locale at the bottom of the sea is also quite impressive, don't get me wrong. But its population almost strictly consists of people that have spliced the absolute bejesus out of their genes, giant people in submersible suits with huge freaking drills on their arms, and little children trying to steal your juice. Man. So not prime real estate, exactly. D&D game with historical figures. They can be political, musical, actors, or otherwise. Choose your 3 compatriots and your DM/GM. I would want the DM to be Neil deGrasse Tyson just because I love listening to him talk in general. And then to play with me, I'd love to see Bill Nye the Science Guy, Theodore Roosevelt, and you know what? Donald Trump. I would love to see Donald Trump brought down to an equal level with everybody else at a table and forced to answer questions and make decisions and solve problems without the aid of just rampant lies and money. So you say that THC is not physically addictive, but a few friends of mine are doubtful. Any specific high reputable sources that you could cite, possibly in a descriptive box that allows hyperlinks that may or may not be located below that handsome mug of yours. Alright, so biology wasn't my major when I was at EGU, but Warden was my roommate and did sort of pass on a lot of his knowledge to me, so I'm going to try to share with you kind of what I gained from him and my interactions with Dr. Edmond. Okay, so when you have a drug that acts as a neurotransmitter like nicotine, a neurotransmitter agonist, so it increases the supply of a given neurotransmitter available in the brain or mimics a natural neurotransmitter. Often what happens is your brain stops producing or reduces the rate in which it produces and releases that neurotransmitter naturally to compensate and bring the levels back down to normal. The problem is that when you stop taking that drug, the brain now has like dangerously low levels of that neurotransmitter that it had slowed down production on previously. So now you need to either take more of that drug to get back to your normal self and avoid the withdrawal symptoms, or suffer the symptoms of withdrawal, and slowly your brain will have to chug forward and eventually get that back up to the level that it was at. Now, nicotine directly targets synapses, which are the primary means for communication between nerves. The receptors that cannabinoids like THC target are a part of a secondary signaling mechanism which plays more of a subtle role on how the nerves work, and the brain doesn't really adapt so readily to them. I'm not necessarily sure if it's completely relevant, but nicotine is a ligand-gated receptor, so once nicotine binds, the channel immediately opens and starts changing things. The body needs to respond more aggressively to adapt to that. Cannabinoid receptors are G-protein coupled, so there's a few steps between binding and triggering a response, allowing the cell's amplification mechanisms to limit the change that it can cause without much really going on. Now, THC, or delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, I believe is the proper name, is a little more complicated because it acts as an inhibitor of the neurotransmitter GABA, or I'll just call it GABA. Now, this was a while ago, but if I recall correctly, GABA usually inhibits/reduces the production and release of neurotransmitters like dopamine. So a drug like THC that inhibits GABA would indirectly increase the supply and availability of neurotransmitters like dopamine in the brain, which I think is part of what gives you the high. The difference here being that the increase in dopamine is a natural side effect of inhibiting the GABA or the GABA, and not a result of directly increasing the supply of or mimicking the neurotransmitters like dopamine. Now, that being said, psychological dependence, so a dependence on the drug that you think you need but your brain does not physically require, can psychosomatically manifest as physical addiction and throw off studies. So if you think you really need it a lot, then your brain and your body will start showing symptoms of withdrawal that aren't actually a byproduct of being weaned off this drug. I will put a link down below to when Adam Conover, i.e. True TV's Adam Ruins Everything from College Humor, etc., did an episode talking about how the war on drugs was bogus and about how weed is actually not that bad. He did a lot more research on this than I have time to do. I will put that link down there, and it just shows all of their sources that they've cited. There's still a lot of argument going back and forth over whether or not this is something that can be classified as physically addictive or as detrimentally damaging to you as, say, cocaine or heroin. There's still a lot of debate going back and forth over whether or not THC could be classified as something you can get physically dependent on because of how it affects GABA and how it indirectly increases the amount of dopamine in your brain. So could that be classified as a physical dependence where, like, in the same category as nicotine? I'm inclined to think that it's not, but some people want to try to argue to push an agenda, etc., etc. You ever thought of doing a video where you would create one of your favorite foods/meals? That might be a little fun to do. Actually, yes, I've thought about bringing back a sort of whenever I can show called Evil Mealtime with the Ace of Blades. I know that eating healthy cannot always be the easiest thing. It's sort of challenging for folks like us who are busy and doing a lot of other things, but it is possible, and I wanted to share some of the recipes that I use for a little more lavish meals. Things that with a little effort and the right ingredients, they're usually found around bachelors' houses, you can find stuff that would work. What are some of your favorite one-liners and or bad puns? I love puns because I feel like they're their own category of humor that you both hate and love. One of my favorites, though, would be standing in the top floor of a business building when the heroes break in on you, and then you turn to them and say something like, "You can run, but you can't glide," and then you leap out the window and a glider opens and you fly away. That's classic. I love that. Fingers crossed, I get to use that someday. Summoning a sprite that looks like you could be tricky. Would a changeling suffice for this contest? Also, how would you put it in your videos? Maybe having it dance behind you every time someone donates? Enslaving a fairy isn't exactly the amount of paperwork I think you can handle. No, Recluse, no. Okay, so not like physical fairies and sprites, like woodland spriggans, no. Sprite is also a term used for tiny game graphics. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking for, specifically 8 to 16-bit, please. Doc, is it true that the nanites replaced your entire nervous system with a system that was a little more confident? I feel like you're trying to make a joke here, but I'm not catching on to what that is. So, I don't know. I mean, the nanites haven't replaced my nervous system at all. Oh, no, I get it. I get it. How can I get a Dr. Terawatt calendar? Well, I mean, we're gonna have them at our table at some point this year. Barring that, though, the GoFundMe for that is presently still up, so if you want, I'm gonna put a link for that in the description down below. If you want to go, you can donate to get your hands on a calendar or any of the other prizes that are being offered on the website there. We've already tripled our goal that we were looking at for building the suit, so all the extra money that I've been getting, I have been putting towards things like building more props, adding more things to the suit, getting flags and banners and stuff like that for our table when we eventually do hit conventions, booking a room at a con in the near future, and stuff like that. So any and all donations that you guys are throwing at me, I'm immediately putting into making all of this more sustainable and better. So thank you very much. I actually cannot thank you guys enough for all the donations you've gotten so far. If you want to throw a few more bucks at it, feel free. I'm leaving it up there. I'm not sure when I'm going to take it down, but it's there now. And that is all the time that we have for today. As always, if you guys want to ask more questions or if I didn't get to your question, leave it in the comment section down below. And until next time, my brave citizens, I am Toronto's greatest supervillain and evil genius, Dr. Terawatt. This is our Layer 3.0, and I will see you tomorrow on our next VEDA. End of line. Oh, God. Oh, I'm in so much pain, it's hard to talk and focus. Ah.